He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
And we're back.
We're back.
Jan, Ron, and we're joined today by certain special guests, about 5 special guests in the studio, which are flying ants. Like,
Flying
what the fuck's going on
ants.
here?
There's
Flying ants are flying around. So if you see an ant start to appear, an ant appears on my white shirt, you'll know what the fuck's wrong with him.
If there's something flying in the screen.
Yeah, and if you see suddenly Ron brushes something away.
We're ducking everywhere.
Ducking out of the way. We have flying ants in the studio. So I just explained the whole story of flying ants, but I won't bore anybody with it. But it's only one time of the year, and today's the time.
And today's the day they've chosen.
And because we have lights on in the studio a lot, they like lights, so they somehow found the lights, and they're banging into the lights and things. Anyway, it's effed up. What can I tell you? All right, so we got a big show today. We're going to dive right in.
Yes.
And as long as the ants don't dive on us, we're going to dive right into the show. Okay, it's a big show. There's lots of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Most of it tragic and wrong. Okay, like that's the problem we're up against. It's mostly tragic and wrong. Yeah. So it's the fraud show. We got so much bullshit, fraud, and disaster, and going on in Toronto this last week. Last week was a rough week. Mm-hmm. So we had a triple shooting in Toronto last week. It's got on a lot of news. It's being followed up on national news, involving a mortgage fraud. Yeah. That ended up tragically. Yeah. It cost 3 lives. Like, it's a hell of a story. I've covered it in some other social media that we do. Put it out there. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but we're also going to talk about, the ins and outs of mortgage fraud, because I get a lot of in the comments section. I get a lot of comments about 2 key things that, because there's one thing about Canadians. We love to blame the victim.
Of course.
We always love to blame the victim. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it is. It's like that story of the guy, the Canadian lobster fisherman came to Boston, and he pulled up his boat and he says, I just got to get some repairs done. And the Boston lobster fisherman looked over and said, hey, you got a problem here. You haven't covered your your lobster pots. You haven't covered your lobster. You got all kinds of lobsters in the buckets. Mm-hmm. And if you don't cover them, they're going to get out. And the Canadian fisherman says, no, sir. No, they won't get out. These are Canadian lobsters. Once the lobster's in the bucket, see one lobster almost get to the top, they'll just grab them with their claws and pull them back down in. So we never have to worry about that. In Canada, we will always find a reason to blame somebody. Okay?
Yeah.
Pull you back down, you mother. Okay.
Dragging you with us.
Pull you back down. So going to touch on that. Going to go through all the sort of different frauds we've been confronted with, and there were, apparently, I'm just literally before coming in to tape the show, I read about a shooting in, this is bad stuff. I read about a shooting in north of Toronto, in a suburb north of Toronto, where previously last year, a person had got had a new construction home. Mm-hmm. They had sort of having the custom built, and all of a sudden it caught on fire. There was video of it being firebombed by 4 guys were coming in.
Yeah, and they were running around and torching the place. Yeah,
exactly.
I remember that.
That video went across country. So for some reason, the owner of that, I don't know all the details, so I don't want to say things out of turn, but apparently, according to recent breaking news, that owner was shot.
No way.
Yeah, Look, so let's talk about this.
He got shot in his home?
Not in the new one. That got burnt, okay?
Right.
But in his own home.
Oh.
In his own home, apparently. So I might not have the story perfect, so I'm not going to say any more.
Wow.
But you know what has hit me about all this is going to be a theme. I believe it's going to be a theme in, particularly in Ontario and in other parts of Canada to a lesser extent. But I think we're going to see a theme develop over the next 6 months till the end of the year, that when a real estate market cycle turns and a mortgage cycle turns, financing costs, which were low for so long, for 14 years of extremely low financing costs, suddenly go much, much higher. And prices are very, very high for real estate. Mm-hmm. Ontario and British Columbia prices are batshit crazy, okay? And they haven't become much less batshit crazy. They become like they were like the they were at the bat shittiest crazy.
Yeah.
I just invented a new phrase. They were at the bat shittiest apex of high prices back in 2021. A little bit 2022. Fell, took a little tiny rebound, and now falling again. But it's not like they've fallen by half, right?
No.
Nothing's half price.
It's not like a huge significant difference.
Not massive, okay?
No.
So we've got very expensive mortgages. Those gone way up. Big mortgages because they were paying for batshit crazy house prices, and the cycle is changing. It's changing as more and more renewals happen. The cycle is changing. Now we've talked about all this stuff before, but what it does do when the cycle changes is it starts to show vulnerabilities, like things that were sort of covered up by rising prices and cheap financing, very low-cost financing.
Yeah.
Things that were sort of dicey, but sort of fixed themselves, like, hey, I think I overpaid on this house. I got to get out of it. I can't afford it. Oh, look, it's got even more expensive. I can sell it now. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
So lots of things that were covered up by super low interest rates and created very expensive prices. They're coming, the cycle is turning around.
And this time it comes with a side of crime.
Side of crime. It comes with would you like a side of fraud with that? Okay. with that batshit crazy high prices, sir. Okay. Like, yes, it's not, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So
crazy.
That's important for everybody, for all the viewers and listeners to know that the reason because some people have said to me, I've been contacted by various people in the news media, and people have said to me, like, why is these problems becoming, is this like big now? But that's the point that I have to make is it was always big. It's just that it's reaching apex problem level now because, when the mortgage rates and the prime rate in Canada really started going up, like, real estate didn't fall apart at that exact moment.
No.
Real estate is probably, now that we've actually started to go into the cycle where rates are going down, but real estate's probably going to be in more trouble this year and next year than it was when the rates first started going up. Because these are all lagging things. It takes time for all of the problems to get impacted into the system. So, when rates first start to go up, there's only a handful of renewals at high rates. But now as we get in deeper and deeper into the very high renewal times, where there's millions of renewals, literally millions, the apex renewal is 2026, and 2025 is almost as high. So yes, we're going to see all that stuff. We're going to see more difficulties because the rates aren't going to 1% again.
No, never.
They're not going to 2%. They're going to. So difficulties will continue. Stress will continue. Stress on financing and new construction will continue. And we'll start to see more results.
Do you see us having a housing crash?
I see us having and we'll talk about it briefly, but we're going to do more shows on it. I see us having, particularly in Ontario, particularly in Toronto, I see us having a problem in the condo market.
Like a condo crash.
Well, let's call it a condo crunch. There's going to be a condo crunch over the next year and a half. We've covered some reasons for that in the past, but it ain't looking good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you straight up, it ain't looking good. So one important thing to remember is, folks, we haven't built any single-family houses in Ontario. We haven't built them for years. Like I was sort of unaware of it, so I just started digging into the data in the last 12 months, and I've discovered that basically all the new homes we've been building in Ontario for the last almost 6 years have been high-rise, like 80%. Okay, so if we're not building single-family, then single-family becomes scarce, right? And scarcity means higher prices.
Of course.
But we sure as shit built some shitty condos. We built the dog crate condos. Okay?
Yeah, I feel like it would be more realistic if the condos were 2-3 bedrooms even, but find a 3-bedroom condo that was built after 2015. You probably won't. And if you do, it's probably the penthouse.
It's one of the penthouse suites.
That's absolutely so it's just kind of like, I understand that they're building it based on the lifestyle of what Toronto is. You live on your own, you eat on King Street every night or whatever, yada, yada. But we eventually grow up. And then what? We live in 400 or 500 square feet with 2 kids and a dog. I couldn't even live in a 500 square feet and I have 2 dogs.
So a couple of people have made great points that, look, there was something magical about 600, a little over 600, that you could, if you have a good layout, a strong layout.
You're a minimalist.
But you have a strong layout of the place. Like the layout really makes sense, and the people did good finishes where there was actual storage built in.
That's the key.
Very important. Yeah. So, and that's just stopped. It just stopped when they're building like sub 400 square feet, sub 450 square feet with fuck all like proper layout. Layout's terrible.
You get 4 walls, a washroom, and a kitchen. 4 walls,
washroom, a kitchen that's just a friggin' couple of appliances and a cupboard. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes. So will there be a condo crunch? I think prediction is a crap business, but I think based on analysis, there's going to be some trouble in condo world. Yes, 100%. But let's break down this horrible disaster that happened. I've covered it in other stories, but to summarize quickly, a man who was the victim of mortgage fraud. So he was convinced to invest in a private mortgage, and he was also convinced at the same time to take out a mortgage or line of credit on his own home. This was a few years ago, so the rates were lower, so it was cheaper. So take out, for the sake of argument, take out a loan on your own home at 4% or 3%, and we're going to invest it in a mortgage, safe mortgage, private mortgage on a great property and in a very safe way, and you're going to get paid a monthly payment that's considerably more than your 3% payment or your 4% payment. We're going to get like you 13, 14%. Okay. And you're only going to have to pay 4% on the mortgage. So perfect. And it's just a lie. Now, again, we fall into the categories as Canadians to say, well, that's you should have been more careful about investing. Okay. Look, these people are professionals. Like when I talk about this, the real villain of this piece, a man named Masagi, he has been involved in fraud in Ontario for 25 years.
That's so bizarre.
It's turned out now that he's been arrested 4 times.
Then what? Slap on the wrist and go back?
He's gone now. The victim.
Yes, he is one of the victims. Yeah,
he's one of the guy who was the victim of the fraud that Masagi was the mastermind of. Sadly, tragically, went in and shot Masagi and his associate, who was the most recent associate, who's the person who had the mortgage license. I'll get into that in a minute. And then, sadly, tragically, the victim of the fraud killed himself. Okay, so it's a horrible story, but that man, Masagi, had been criminally charged 4 times in 25 years. There were it's incredible, right? There were whole police, you don't run into this too often. This was a person who had task forces of police assigned to
investigate him
and catch him.
Yeah.
Okay? They actually had projects. They had two different projects.
Yeah.
One was called Project TikTok, and the other was called Project Bridle Path.
Mm-hmm.
And they just tried every way to investigate him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's elusive, right? I mean, fraud is you have to be good at charging fraud, good at prosecuting fraud. You have to have skills to do it, because let's face it, it's not just a videotape in a bank showing somebody robbing a bank, right?
It's a lot more than that.
It's all documents and emails, and
you have to follow the paper trail, and it better be a very strong paper trail.
Well, regrettably, yeah. And look, but this guy was arrested 4 times, and all 4 times, the Crown dropped the charges. So there were literally maybe 10,000 hours of police work over the course of multiple investigations, and the Crown never.
I assume there wasn't enough evidence.
Well, here's the crazy part in Canada. This is the really wild part in Canada. In our justice system, the Crowns don't have to tell you anything. They're not. They are not responsible to the public for saying anything they do.
They can just
nothing.
Make the choice, and then that's it.
That's it. And there's no comment. No comment on these cases.
Wow.
So nobody can tell you. Absolutely nobody can tell you why they dropped the charges. Now, I have done my own investigations in the past, and ex-Crowns and defense lawyers have told me in Canada, we have a problem with fraud cases. We have a problem with fraud based on our own court system, based on precedent law, based on case law, based on our own Supreme Court's view of how evidence should be handled, which means that, let's say that there's 30,000 documents. No, we're talking about like just documents, but copies of emails, copies of text,
the whole 9 yards,
statements made by victims, just a massive paper trail, as you say.
Yeah.
And that 30,000 pages needs to be delivered to the defense so they can review it for discovery, for their own discovery, for their own review of preparing their defense. And out of that 30,000 pages, if the prosecution doesn't send all of them, like if they're missing 20 pages, that's a reason to drop the case. Like if you went to court with that and we say, yeah, but like it's almost time to go to court, and the defense says, hey, I think you missed sending us 20 pages. We're going to move to withdraw the charges. Yeah. And also all kinds of the other problem with Crowns in Canada, to be honest with you, is these are long cases. This is not like, and these are not, you want to know the other really weird thing? All kinds of non-violent crime in Canada does not attach much penalty.
No.
Okay?
No. That's why the car thieves just walk out. If you didn't hurt nobody, then sign here, place your finger here, go home.
That is it. That is so it. And you could be a 3rd time arrest as a car thief, and you don't even spend the night in jail. They just give you a promise to appear.
Nobody was hurt. Don't do it again.
Sign a promise to appear. We'll see you whenever. Oh, I see you've got 2 other court cases. We'll try to get them put together, okay?
Let me do that for you. Make it convenient.
So we don't treat fraud. Like I think on average fraud sentence, if you ever get there, is like 2 years less a day, 4 years less a day. They're not heavy sentences. And literally no one serves time. Like there's nobody say, well, we deny you bail because we think you're just going to go out and do fraud again. That never happens. You're automatically released every time.
Wow.
So for nonviolent crimes, it's automatic release. Now, and again, these are complicated files. And obviously violent crime does take precedence. So we also get into a situation where the Crowns, the prosecutors in Canada, who are not always particularly well paid, regrettably, okay? Not, in my opinion, not enough of them, and not well paid enough, and not, like, we should really want to try to make, these jobs as Crown prosecutors like prestige jobs. Yeah. Like in the United States, they actually elect prosecutors. They elect district attorneys. They elect state attorneys. So these are people who have a real desire to do a good job, or they're just going to get thrown out. Okay, they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to get voted out. I'm not saying that we should vote on these kind of things like judges and attorneys, but we got to do something better. We got to pay people better. We got to motivate them better, and we got to make it that when you leave university with a law degree, that you would say, yeah, that's a great profession to go into. I want to be a crown prosecutor and do good. Okay. Yeah. We don't have enough of that. Yeah. So what happens is the crowns on these highly complicated cases often are rotated. Like they either quit or they retire, or again, it's not a super well-paying job, so they get rotated out of a case. So when a new crown shows up with a complicated case, there's 30,000 pages. Holy shit! I mean, so I'll just sum it all up. This guy, who is he's such a well-known fraudster that when the police captured his documents and texts and emails, he would actually boast about how he could get past all this stuff. He would say, no matter what, he says, I always figure out a new way. I always find a new way to beat the system. I could get around these charges every time. Okay. Yeah. They found those texts. So that's the guy's. Four times they withdrew the charges.
Wow.
And now he's had numerous civil charges, numerous lawsuits filed against him because obviously he just stole millions and millions. I think he might have stolen $100 million in his 25-year career. Okay. So that's a really bad situation because I want you to think about it. The people that he stole the money from, defrauded the money from, they're in a bad financial situation. He's got the money, millions of dollars in money. He's in a great financial situation. He can hire the best lawyers. Yeah. The best lawyers. Okay. And that's in litigation of lawsuits. You just need the best folks.
Yeah. These people lost their whole life savings. And you kind of see if the justice system is not working, like, for example, in this situation, he took matters into his own hands. Violence is never the answer. Never. But he saw that there was nothing that was going to be done. He lost hope. Totally. You lose hope and you say, well, I guess I have no choice. Obviously, you always have a choice, but he felt like he had no choice. Well, he did what he did.
He felt his widow gave interviews, and she said he felt his life was over.
Yeah, he lost his life savings to...
He was going to lose his house because he couldn't pay the mortgage anymore.
Yeah, he was left with almost nothing.
Yep.
And
debt.
And how long did all of this happen? I think it was like 2018. What I read in the article.
The money was handed over in 2018.
It's 2024, and nothing had gotten done.
And charges dropped.
You have no money. I'm not saying I'm justifying it, but I understand that he got fed up and just fucking did it.
You're right. I think everybody understands. Everybody relates to this. You're so right. It's just wrong. That is the wrong choice. Mm-hmm. Like, he's left a family behind, right?
Yeah.
But that's the desperation that happens when your lawsuits won't work.
When your justice system is not there for you.
No, it's not.
So
this guy, Misagi, he became an expert. He became an expert at doing fraud, and he became an expert at fighting the justice system. And
pure evil.
Let me give you a real pip. This guy went bankrupt in 2020, and he's never been discharged. So if you're an undischarged bankrupt, you are judgment proof. Sure, they can try to find assets, but if they've dropped all the charges, nobody's ever going to search for assets, right? That's never going to happen.
No one's looking to begin with.
And yet there's $100 million up in smoke. Okay, so how does he do it? Well, how did he do it? Because he ain't doing it anymore. The reality is he would find people, his family, close associates. Sadly, the woman who was also lost her life was the associate he was using as a licensed mortgage agent. Because, let's face it, folks, it's not that hard to get a mortgage license. Mm-hmm. It's about $1,400-$1,500 all in for the course. Mm-hmm. Pay the government for your license. You have to pass the course.
Write the exam.
Get
hired.
Amongst people who speak English or French. Mm-hmm. the exam is about a 96% pass rate. Okay. That gives you the initial license level 1. And listen, he's found a lot of those people, family, associates, people within his own community.
And he lost his license, correct?
Yeah, he hadn't had it for a decade.
So he just was using people to do...
Frontmen. He used frontmen and women. He used people who could be licensed.
Yikes.
These people, they would, be the front person for the fraud. He's the mastermind. They're the front person. And then when they get, they were knowing puppets. They got paid. They were like, they knew what was going on. Okay.
Yeah.
So just to quickly describe it, he used fake appraisal documents. He paid off appraisers. He paid off lawyers because actually 2 lawyers involved with Misagi both gave up their licenses because he could talk them into doing crime, forging documents, preparing false title documents. So people ended up with believing that the house had a value that was far higher than it should be because the appraiser was paid off. Then you've got the possibility of actual title theft, false IDs. You've got lawyers issuing documents that showed that there's now a mortgage on this property when there was not. And the guy just grabbed the dough.
He put together a circus.
And what he would do is he'd cycle through people. Like as soon as somebody was under investigation or going to lose their mortgage license, they just gave up their mortgage license. They say, I don't want it anymore. And then he'd have somebody else lined up, another associate, another family member, another person he's made friends with in the community. He'd have them ready to go. Wow. He might have licensed them already and just left them dormant. Okay. Now you might say to yourself, well, wow, that's a shitty licensing system. Well, not really. No. Okay. Because, it's a low barrier to entry, but you do have to pass the test. They're a lot more, they become ultra careful about ID and they do criminal background checks. They do all that. The regulator does all that.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll tear into you. By the way, if you have a problem, they won't give you a license. Okay. There's the sort of one adjunct problem is though that mortgage brokerage companies are very happy to hire people. Yeah. Oh, you think you can do something? Okay, good. Sign here. Okay. And you're part of our brokerage now and we'll split commissions with you, whatever the case may be. But once they have that license, they can now have a website and they can have a business card and they can have the look of being a registered mortgage agent. They look legit. Okay. And if you check on the regulator's website, they are legit. Their name comes up. Yes, they're legitimately an approved mortgage agent. Okay. In the meantime, Mizagi is organizing the frauds in the background. He's pushing the levers, paying off the lawyers, paying off the appraisers. And here's the crazy part. After all these years of getting away with it, being charged, charges dropped, he's actually like a professor level at a university fraudster. Like he's done so much fraud, so consistently, so expertly that he gets out of it all the time.
He's passing down the torch.
Yeah, he is literally professor fraud, professor mortgage fraud. Because if you've done something for 18, 19, 20 years,
you've honed your skills.
You've honed your skills. Okay, you are good at it.
Yeah.
Okay? So
it got to a point where they were investigating him. They should have put a stop to it. And I know it's hard.
It is
but
hard.
If our justice system just was a little bit better, this most likely could have been prevented.
Well, there's no question. I mean, if this man was in jail, first of all, if he's in jail, he's not getting shot. Okay, and at least the victims, even if they're having a hard time getting restitution. By the way, if a fraudster's gotten a criminal conviction, there are more tools then to investigate assets.
Exactly.
To sort where is the assets? Where did the money go? Let's just do a big search.
There's more funds allocated to do the investigation.
Right. Oh, no, but really importantly, you can win a civil litigation at that point. Hey, you sue somebody.
He's criminally charged for this.
Criminally charged, found guilty.
Yeah.
Now we can really go to town.
You have a real case on your hands.
And you can actually have the chance to go to bank accounts and say, well, let's see where the money went. Like, we got this disbarred lawyer over here. Let's get into his accounts. But until people are found criminally that they did it,
hands are tied.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
So yes, if he'd have been convicted, there's a certain basic certainty that none of this would have happened. But now let's talk about other fraud that's gone on. So, and again, examples of where our justice system does a terrible, terrible job on fraud, and mortgage fraud in particular. Don't get me wrong, the justice system isn't too bad if you're just like a wealth advisor, like you're some kind of financial advisor, and you just tell people you're taking money and putting it into investments, then you just run away one day with the money. I mean, they can figure that one out relatively quickly. But the trouble with mortgages, it gets murky. Like you've given somebody money for a mortgage in theory, and now you have to prove whether it's been registered or not, and then you have to prove, well, who got the money in the end? Did the borrower get the money? I mean, like, there's extra steps.
There's a lot of loopholes that they can really get through.
There's a lot of steps. So let's go back to Fortress Development. So Fortress Development was another fraud in Ontario, but that was huge money. That was $400 million. They'd actually gone through over $1 billion, raising money from investors, putting it into crap mortgages on new construction.
This was a while ago, right?
8 years ago. They had a bunch of mortgage brokerages fronting for them, because actually some of those principals of that organization, Fortress Development, had lifetime bans from the mutual fund industry. So they would have had a hard time getting. But once again, it's the concept that they get front people working for them. They hire people who say, hey, you want a nice job? Be a branch manager of one of our mortgage brokerages. We're going to set you up. We're going to finance you. You're going to open this mortgage brokerage. You're going to sell our products. Everybody's going to make money. Okay. And that person's clean. That person's the principal broker of that brokerage is clean until they're not. Like they all got caught. They all got their license revoked. They all got fines. But if you like stole $400 million, you can pay a few $1 million fines, right? And then those the brokerages are all gone now. But in the end, when they went, it took them nearly 4 years. You know, they go in and seize the computers at Fortress Development to see where the fuck the money went. Because the real key to this thing is none of those people who invested money, they syndicated mortgages. They actually did register some mortgages, but they did it on, again, fake appraisals, fake letters of value, and then they just didn't tell you things about it. Like literally no one knew that every penny that was raised through Fortress Developments that was supposed to go to build a project, build a tower, build a big mall, build something. That every one of those development loans, Fortress took 35% off the top. You talk to one single guy who's investing money in a mortgage. You say, hey, did you think all the money was going to help build the project? Yes, that's what it was. No, hell no. They took 35 cents of every fucking dollar and just put it in their pocket. Okay. Oh, and by the way, part of the money you loaned, you thought it was all going to sort of pay trades and buy land and, pay for construction. No, actually, it was also used to pay your payments for a year. Like you were paying yourself with your own money, okay?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what they did. They just put aside some money and said, okay, we're going to we promised everybody 12 payments, then we'll look to see how much progress we made. Here, we'll set aside the money from the money you lent us. We're going to set up an account and pay your payments out of that, okay? That was after we took 35 cents of every dollar and put it on our own wallets, okay? So yeah, that was a total fraud. After they seized the computers and seized all the documents, which, by the way, people were scurrying around trying to hide and erase the computers and all this bullshit, but they did get it. And it took them multiple years to lay the charges.
Well, he had a lot of evidence to go through.
Yes, big but. I mean, how long does something take? Okay. So, and then finally they've laid the charges about nearly 2 years ago. They haven't got to court yet.
What?
Yeah, they haven't got to court. So when you leave that much time between, okay, 8 years ago they shut the mortgage branches down. This much time, you can move the money around a lot. Like you can send it offshore. You can do fake divorces from your wives and then leave them with a bunch of money and leave your kids with money. And when you finally lose, And if you're found criminally guilty, which they haven't gone to trial yet.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're found criminally guilty, you can be fined. You could then have then a class action could go after you in lawsuits to say, yeah, you stole our money, so we're going to go after your assets.
But if you don't have any,
file
for bankruptcy, call it a day. Go live with your ex-wife.
Because you're interesting enough, even though you've been divorced for 2 years, you're still living with her. Okay. Well, how'd that happen? Just friends. So look, those people, none of those people are going to get a penny. Now, thankfully, some of them did get money back because there were buildings, but they got like 20 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, 55 cents on the dollar. So, but still really like 400 million is just gone.
Yeah.
Okay. So where the fuck to go? Right. Anyway, Claire Drage, we've talked about Claire Drage before. Promissory notes, mortgages on development properties, probably $100 million gone. Okay. So, and she's sort of out of the picture now. She's filed for bankruptcy. All her companies are in receivership. She gave up her mortgage license. The only way to pursue her, like if you're litigating companies, so all the people who have lost their money are litigating her companies, which are now in receivership. So that's useless. Okay. They're litigating her. Now she's bankrupt, so that's useless.
Couldn't they go after the real estate group?
They could, but in effect, the real estate group didn't get the money. Claire got the money to lend out, right? On the promissory notes, Claire signed for a bunch of them personally, okay?
Right.
So how do you blame the real estate group? I mean, like, now, should there be a big... Look, ultimately, there just should be a huge fucking investigation called Where Did the Fucking Money Go? Okay, let's get the crowns in here. Let's get the cops in here. Let's get everybody involved. Where the fuck's the money? What happened to the money? Did some of the money get drained off somewhere? Let's look for it. Okay. But that might take another 2 years before anybody gets going on that. So
before they even start looking.
So folks, when there is fraud in the mortgage industry, there's fraud in the real estate. Hell, we just had two lawyers just they blew up $17 million in their trust account. So $17 million missing from their trust account.
What is going on?
What is it? It's like we talked about at the beginning of the show. It's end of cycle behavior. It's when the cycle turns against you and everything slows down and everything gets too expensive, then all the skeletons come tumbling out of the closet.
Clearly. Okay? Yeah. So people are going fucking crazy.
Well, because when things are running hot, you can always hide it. There's always new money coming in. Okay. But when things cool off, that's what we got. Man. So listen, look, it's again, end of cycle brings out bad things. Not this thing, not the Misagi fraud. That guy's been doing it for 25 years. That's 25 years of... That
guy's been unhinged for
25 years of fraud excellence because I've learned my job so well from being arrested 4 times and getting away with it all 4 times. Okay. Gosh. So that's when you really learn what works, is when you've been through it.
That's a very extreme version of fuck around and find out.
The worst. Yeah.
The worst.
I still feel really bad about it. I mean,
of course, he was a life. Like at the end of the day, he's a human.
I'm not even so worked up about him, to be honest with you, but I don't know how guilty the woman was, who was his associate. I don't know how much evil she had actually done, or whether she was really under his influence. And I sure as hell feel really sorry for the guy who killed himself. Okay.
3 families lost a life.
Terrible.
It's terrible all around.
So we got viewer mail. We always have viewer mail.
Yes,
so let's look at the mailbag.
Okay, this one says, what should a lawyer cost to buy a house? My real estate agent says $2,000 plus some disbursement, but the bill is $5,200. What's up? So,
not knowing what the value of the house is, it's hard for me to comment, but I can make a suggestion. In Canada, all throughout Canada, lenders insist on title insurance. So, title insurance is the coverage for both you and the lender, to make sure if there's some fraudulent activity, like on title, or even if just something's wrong with the survey, as little as something's wrong with the survey, okay, that creates a problem for the house later. Or, hey, you got to tear half this house down because I think you're on my property, okay, that kind of shit, okay. Hardly ever happens now, but did happen in the old days, okay. On a very expensive house, like you're buying a $5 million house, just the title insurance is like $3,000. So like it can get very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Because there has been some mortgage title fraud, and we've heard about it, false identities and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And those premiums have gone way up. So if it's an inexpensive house, I think, for like a $900,000 house, I think for sure the $2,000 is fine. But once you have a $5 million house, $6 million house, it's going to be a lot more, just in the title insurance alone. Okay.
Got it. This one says, I am trying to switch my mortgage for a better deal on renewal, but they're telling us the mortgage cannot be switched, only discharged and refinanced.
Yeah, this is something that you run into sometimes. It's very rare. Let me put that out to everybody where they're thinking, oh my God, am I in trouble? And this is not about collateral charges. We have lots of systems in place to transfer collateral charges at no cost or, basically no cost. Like we've got to the point today where a collateral charge, you might not get the very, very lowest rate when you transfer collateral charge, but you're not paying to move it in many cases. So this is not about collateral charges. What this is about is situations where the lender itself is either so small or so specialized. Like the first lender, the lender you got your mortgage with in the beginning, now you want to switch to a bank or something, and you're with a small credit union. They just drew up their mortgages so that they were kind of didn't have that clause that allowed a transfer, or the mortgages are just for the credit union, and their position is, well, if you want to get out, you're gonna have to discharge it. We can't be bothered with all this transfer stuff. Okay, so it happens very, very seldom, but it can happen. Okay, but I think you just had bad luck. You're just with one of these tiny credit unions, or you're with another lender that had a particular product that was just designed with no transfer. But it's like 1% of mortgages. Almost all of them could be transferred. Okay. So I just make it just a note to our loyal viewers and listeners that CBC ran a good. Please, I don't want everybody to get who's mad at the CBC. Yeah, defund the CBC. No, the CBC is fine. Okay, like we can all argue about whether it costs too much later, but they do great work. Okay, this was a really great program. It was put together on CBC to do with condos. Yeah. Okay, just Google it up. Go to CBC. You'll see it very quickly.
Is your face the thumbnail?
Sorry?
Is your face the thumbnail?
No, I'm not. My face is not on it. My face is not on it. It was a very well done. It was about a 12.5 minute, 13-minute piece on just what's happened over the history of condos in Toronto and across Canada, how sizes have shrank. And they did some very good research on showing how really the incredible shrinking condo. Okay, it got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then the prices got higher and higher and higher and higher, okay? Yeah. And a great piece about that explains in detail, easy to understand, how we may have reached this condo crunch that we talked about earlier in the show. So if you have time to Google it, it's on YouTube, CBC, go to CBC Condos, and you might see me talking in it a little bit. But
it's a good listen for all of you dog crate condo lovers.
Yeah, or all of you people who are scratching your heads about what's going to happen in the condo market in the next little while.
Good insight.
Yeah, it was a good show. I was actually, it was really well put together. Yeah. Like honestly, they did the research on size shrinkage, price movement. They had the years, they had the data.
I love that.
It was good. It was well done.
I love that.
It was really well done. So yeah, shout out to those guys at the CBC who put that show together. It was really good. Okay, so this part brings us to our favorite part of the program.
What the actual fuck?
Yeah. So what the actual fuck is going on with all this sprinkling of racist bullshit comments in every time we put out a podcast? Every time I put a post out on social media.
Anything, everywhere. It's everywhere.
Every fucking where. Okay? Like, folks, it's a polite request. Please stop fucking doing the shitty racist comments. Okay? Like it's look. Sometimes people think because I'm this sort of ancient white guy, okay? Ancient white male that, as you know, what did you say? You said you thought I'd been here for like 5 generations? Yeah.
We were talking earlier and I was like, what are you, like 5th generation Canadian?
So I'm not. Like, I'm not actually 5th generation Canadian. So my grandfather came from Ireland and when he landed, a long time ago, like a long time, because I'm old and my dad was old when I was born. And his dad was old when he was born. Okay. So my granddad came from Ireland back in the 1870s.
Nice.
Landed up in San Francisco because he was sort of interested in prospecting for gold and shit. Okay?
Yeah.
And when he got to San Francisco, when he tried to go get a drink, he came up to the bar, and in the bar it said, "No dogs or Irishmen allowed." Okay, so that's what it said. That actually happened.
Well,
no dogs or Irishmen allowed in this bar. So somehow I guarantee you, somehow he found a drink. But then he finally drifted up to Canada. Nobody cared about the borders in those days.
Oh,
you go back into the 1870s,
walk
1880s,
across
just walk across and, hey, I'm in Canada now. Okay, that's nice. I'm looking for gold. Okay. Long story short, he stayed. He sent away. He mailed a letter away and paid the money to have a much younger bride come from Ireland to marry him. Okay, so she was about 20 years younger. Okay, I'm pretty well established in Canada. But
yeah.
when people look at me, they say, this guy swears and he talks this talk and
he's got to be racist.
He's got to be a redneck racist fucker. Okay, so let me say this with great clarity. Okay, stop the fucking stupid racist comments in any kind of social media post I make. Please stop. Okay, like, look. This is just the stupidest thing in the world, okay? So we've had in Canada in the last 2 years, we've had a massive influx of South Asian students, international students come to Canada. And every time I see everything now, everybody is wants to blame for every wrong thing that happened. People want to blame these poor students who are sometimes absolutely lied to come to Canada.
Yeah.
Okay? Lied to, their families borrowed money, paid huge tuitions to go to the shittiest community colleges you could ever imagine.
They've literally built like buildings out of their tuition. So these colleges depend on international students.
But mainly just mansions for the owners of these crooked owners of these fucking community colleges who still, all those poor guys are just taking courses by Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, like they don't even have a place to go half the time.
Yeah.
And
let alone somewhere to live.
The owners of the community colleges have made a fortune.
Yeah.
Okay. These people are coming over here. These South Asian guys, and mainly South Asian guys, are coming over here, sleeping in futons, working their asses off part-time, and then people get mad at them. Like, that was some of the crazy posts. Hey, don't you see all these kids from India are working at the Tim Hortons, like taking away Canadian jobs? I got news for you guys. Nobody wanted those fucking jobs. Okay, they are doing the jobs that you don't want to do. Okay?
It's the same thing like in the States, how everyone's mad at the Latinos that are doing the farming jobs.
Yeah,
it's like,
you're stealing our jobs. Okay?
Do you want to harvest tomatoes?
Oh,
like,
God.
let people come to these countries and work hard.
Let me get real good clarity on this, folks. Really good clarity. So remember, when my grandfather first came to San Francisco, the sign on the wall said, "No dogs or Irishmen allowed." Okay, so we blame everybody. We use the stupid racist stereotypes that are bullshit. Okay, like everybody, when the Italians came here in the 1950s, 1960s, they just said, these dumb Italians, they're a mafia, this and that. Hey, guess what? They built the fucking cities, Canada, because smarten the fuck up. Okay, like, and this is what really pisses me off. I get racist comments blaming South Asian kids for working. Look, they're working, okay? The sons of bitches are here, and they're working, okay? You're mad at people who are fucking working, okay? Shut the fuck up, okay? Stop this racist bullshit. No more, okay? If I see a racist comment in any of my feeds, any of it, you're blocked for life, okay?
Forever.
For fucking ever, okay? Like, fucking stop it, okay? Stop it. I don't want to get into all the politics of this shit, all the politics of the problems we got in this country today with protests and everything. I'm not getting into that. But I will say, blaming students who came here on student visas and making racist bullshit comments about these kids who are here at their family's expense, working while they're taking courses that they paid huge amounts of money for.
It's bullshit.
Shut the fuck up about that. No more. Thank you all.
Thanks.
See you next week.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.